The collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is everything I'm gonna say, everything I will attempt to relay here is a portrayal of my belief structure currently, December 25th, 2024. It is open to everything. It is open to interpretation, it is open to change, it is open to uh, I do not support anyone accepting any information. I support everyone growing to the place in which their awareness is held open and strong so that any information that arrives to them, they accept via the learning and discerning and filter of wisdom and care process, that what gets through the aura barrier comes in according to what resonates with them, their resonance. If you give somebody a, not that I hold it, but any if a angelic or master or enlightened being of whatever level, a more a closer representation to the creative generative principle of God or love appears and hands something that's on stage, um, 2 million, to somebody that's on stage 73, and that individual that's on stage 73 uh, is around individuals that are on stage 12 to stage 25. That individual that's on stage 73 may think that they get it because they're so far ahead of the other ones, but they're only like 2 or 3 times farther. This enlightened being that's offering it to them is, you know, thousands to millions of times farther. And it's not better either. It doesn't change the fact that all of those levels, 12, 20, 73, 2 million and beyond, they're all fractalizations of God, love, the singular one love, the creative generative principle. If they're doing good and bad or however it's perceived, they're all representations of the energy of the creative generative principle at the very farthest back core. When you take the widest possible angle of all life everywhere beyond just this place, there is no good and bad. However, that doesn't mean I wouldn't be fighting on one side or participating or rooting for one side of the war. That's just my nature as I am now. I mean a spiritual war, not a war in the desert. Um, but I still see past it that fighting is not the answer to anything ever. So there's these layers of what is actually what is actual functionality of how this place is changing. One of my principles is love and loyalty is all that matters. Everything is situational, and everything is always changing. Now, that everything applies to everything, but at scale. So, do the Hermetic principles apply to everything everywhere? I don't know. Is that ever going to change? I don't know, but possibly. Do they apply to this place? Absolutely. If everything is changing, how does it change? In the most efficient explanation is based on the predictable outcome of the end result of the collective unconscious based on the information being fed into the collective unconscious. These terms are not terms that I got from anywhere. I am familiar with Carl Jung. I haven't dived in deep, but I'm familiar. Um, in my interpretation, where he got a lot of his insight is the same place I got mine. Without hubris, it's right here. And at whatever time it was proper, things showed up, and then at whatever time it was proper, he released the information. And that's what I'm attempting to do now. I am not saying that this is the only right version, and I'm not saying that um, any type of science ever anywhere is going to agree on any level. But I'm saying this is my current belief structure based on the clarity from which I sit. And I choose these words based on the definition of how I see it, not because somebody else used the term similarly. The layers of consciousness that I perceive are superconscious, self conscious, unconscious, lower unconscious, subconscious. Not higher to lower, but it's just easier to see it in that manner. The subconscious is the womb that holds the information at the base of it and then projects that information back out into our existence. The unconscious is that which holds all the information within the cave of who we are. The lower unconscious is below that cave, below that tree. It's the roots. I like to think of it as a dense and tangled hedgerow. Just kidding. Dense and tangled root mass of a mangrove tree. It's all mucky and all rotting clams and shrimp and nematodes and uh, brackish saltwater and all types of stuff in there. And it's really, really, really hard to dig through. It's almost impossible just to go in and clean out. To enter into the lower unconscious, which is our deepest level of programming, we must enter into, in my opinion, the superconscious, which gives us the opportunity to go in there, see it from a different diagram, see it from a different literal dimension, and then go in there and replicate things and clean things and turn things around and create an environment that is not as stuck in the mud, literally. Um, you enter into the superconscious, you can change any of it, but the core thing to address would be the lower unconscious, because that's where the base level fears, a lot of the base stuff from the inversion of the ego, are residing, and most of it's in a protective manner for us, and just the core attributes of ourselves that we came here to address and overcome. And we should be doing this by the age of like 12 to 20. Instead, society pushes us in another direction and becomes repressed, and then it becomes odd if anybody tries to figure themselves out. They have to go in this um, more extended adolescence into a deeper trench of a hero's journey instead of charging at it from the place of growing out of the kid stage. And the whole time they're in the kid stage, they're looking forward to addressing themselves and then growing past it. It's a whole different opportunity in life to look at our challenges and our hardships with glee in the future. I can't wait till I get to the place of being able to figure myself out as the chief has done for himself, and as we all talk about. But instead, we hide, we hide, we hide. There's nothing wrong with anybody. It's not that there's anything wrong, is that you're here to address you and grow. You're here to be the real you. You're here to master yourself. So, the collective unconscious is, again, I'm not going to say it another time, but this is my perspective. Internally, I didn't get it from anywhere. It's not better or worse. The collective unconscious is a net. It is a communicative net. It is the actual real internet. The internet is an attempted overlay relay in physical dimension of actually what the collective unconscious is. Collective unconscious seems like it operates in a controlling and nefarious manner within at least my lifetime. It's not operating that way. It's based on the stage of growth of life in the dimension that we have been residing, the age of the turnings of the rhythm that this place is in and that the peoples are in, the masses. And there's a requirement for this. There would be no ocean if the waves didn't move cyclically. If it just stayed on top, there would be no way to move the water underneath and keep it functioning. There would be a lack of waves almost immediately. There has to be the rhythm of up and down to keep things moving. That's how everything works. That's how you can represent the supposed atom, but even beyond that, just electricity. Electricity is turning, turning, turning of the rhythm. The magnet is electricity is mixing the magnetic pole turning and the rhythm constantly. Everything is in rhythm, and the easiest way to see this is in art or the stage of life, um, or social orders. Stage of life being individual, animal, a dog, a horse, a kid, into an adult, into a grandparent. These things are very predictable. A tree. Everything is rhythm. Step back and look at the cycle of the masses of Earth itself going through rhythms. And then look at that there's an invisible energy field of the collectiveness of the auras of the consciousness of the individual connected to each other in a manner that is not visible. That connectivity is a flow state. Now, I shouldn't say it that way. That connectivity is in a cyclical flow within itself, which is rhythm, and is flowing from the rhythm of where the earth is coming from and where it must go, where the masses are coming from and where their growth as embodiment and consciousness must go. The collective unconscious is the intermediary between that. It's the intermediary between the growth of the earth or supposed decline and the growth of the masses into an accelerated state or a perceived decline state based on their embodiment and their consciousness. Everybody has come here for a purpose. Everybody's doing exactly what they're meant to do. It's just whether they choose to live their entire life running away or they choose to address themselves and go full hog at being truly who they're meant to be. Either way, they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's just a different line. Based on that, my expectation is that we are in a stage in which there will be a splitting of the collective unconscious. I may get into that later. I don't, if something like that doesn't happen, whatever. It's not like I'm going to be held accountable. I was wrong. I don't care about that. It's just very clearly how I see it. So the collective unconscious is basically a aura of itself, self-serving loop energy that operates as one core internet that every single node within it is a larger or a smaller than the collective unconscious, but a large regional or global little internet of itself. So say a big religion, a big government or policy or regional acceptance of social norms. Just being of the perspective of being a white person or an Asian person, being a person, being somebody who dislikes this other side, that's a small grouping. And someone who likes rap music, that's a large grouping. And it comes down to, like Russian dolls, it comes down to your regional place of your state or your province, and then your town and the people that you are close to in your town, the people that you're aware of in your town. These are all mini collective unconsciouses that are functioning. And there's a lot of folks that, well, damn near everybody in the world that is, that are attached to the collective unconscious that you don't have any awareness of your communication with them. So look into, again, I didn't get this from this, but it just falls in. Look into Rupert Sheldrake and morphic resonance. There's no communication, there's no awareness of this other group of any level. I think he initially represented it with rats on different continents, but I have a full gnosis that this is how it works for humans. It's obvious that given new information or it's never new information. Given an acceptance of information, that will proliferate in percentages of embodiments across the entirety of the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, at its core, has other collective unconsciouses in a way that is influencing it. This can be seen, in my opinion, through the allegory of Plato's cave. So if you look way beyond the cave, way beyond the guards, there's someone in theory who set up the cave. And there's someone in theory who planned to set up the cave, who gave the go ahead to it. And there's someone in theory who's still being aware of the cave and financing it or um, being in charge of it from a distance. So all these things had to happen for the cave to even be there. And how long of this plan, is in the works before it's actually functioning. That can be seen as just, that's the way this place works, and it's a trick from the get go. A lot of people fall into this. There's all these middle and lower gods, and this place is a prison, and it's all a big trick. I don't agree. The collective unconscious is receiving programming from these other, what would be considered smaller collective unconsciouses. Through the ages, it's become very clear that what is projected, this is not nefarious, what is projected in as repeated and or deeply emotionally attached to information into an individual will then begin to appear in that individual's life. What you pay attention to grows. So at some point this was figured out, and I'm of the suspicion that this is how everything works everywhere. I mean, beyond this world. I mean, everybody lives within their own world, but beyond this realm that we call Earth. So we're all our own little worlds, and we live in these other community worlds. These are all like bubbles within the collective unconscious, and the collective unconscious is like the larger world. And then if you choose to, which I have support for, the perspective that it's a great option to separate yourself completely in your world into only the natural realm for a good period of time. Give yourself 2 weeks or however long you choose, and you will see a completely different life that is known as world, a completely different relationship with the living life of this place, and you of who you really are appear. And then that is the actual magic that's happening. But it's very difficult to see it when you're within the overall collective unconscious because it's so strong. And it's so strong because it's powered by like this huge force of a wave. The difference is it's part of your divine energy that's actually feeding that wave, that's pulling and pushing. So there are these groups that, for whatever reason, have the perspective that it is their duty, which it probably is, to feed in information for a balancing of the collective unconscious. And the collective unconscious, in theory, is a world of itself. So it has its own aura with everybody within it. And that is of a certain frequency that's fairly standardized. So that as much as it may seem like it's a trap, is actually keeping everyone to a certain degree safe compared to going out on your own. Not safe from like wild animals. I mean safe like you're not going too low in frequency if you're part of the beehive masses here. But you're definitely not going too high either. You ever notice that damn near everybody feels like they're stuck? And that there's all these movies made about like there's something going on here. There's some problem. But what is it? You know, people blame aliens and all types of things. The government. It's that you are within a system that you cannot see. I call it the collective unconscious. In another age, this collective unconscious is serving the elevation of the awareness of all the masses. In in the bigger picture, the collective unconscious is just a fragment of what's happening in this place, and it's always serving God, you know, the 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 real you, where you come from, always. It just may not feel like that within this lifetime for you now, because there's certain requirements to get things to certain places. And if anybody thinks that's a cop out, just maybe you saying it's a cop out is a cop out. You know, like who's more willing to dive in and really search themselves and search with God, search with love, search with what this place is, and be genuine, truly genuine, instead of trying to figure things out based on the operation of fear, control, 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 fear, fear, fear. Well, I would say to anybody who's doing that unintentionally, where the fuck did you get that from? Sounds to me like the same thing that is fed into the collective unconscious, which is you better yourself in this very structured way, and yet anything that is attached to great wisdom and great clarity and great accelerated heights of frequency, that's crazy, or that's not real, or that's the thing that we are not allowed to look at. We just immediately say that's not true. Why? Because everybody is constantly fed this implied repetition of fear. There's a lot of fun and great things that happen within this world, even if you're attached to collective unconscious. You know, it's not like everything's droll, but there is a program and many programs that are here to guide you. It is up to you to accept or not accept everything. Almost no one you've met actually has the wherewithal within themselves that anything is an offer on a spiritual level, and they do not really comprehend who they are as themselves or as a fractalization of the singular one love, God, or as a being that has the ability to control themselves and work within this realm to control that around them. They think of themselves as a worker bee who's trying to get ahead in the hive and not trying to get out of the hive. And they think anybody who's trying to get out of the hive is weird and a problem. So that is not them. That is actually the collective unconscious showing itself. The collective unconscious is a self-serving loop, self-serving system. You also are a self-serving system. Everything is a self-serving system. When someone has the glazed eyes, not wanting to hear a, a more nuanced, wise position, that is the collective unconscious operating through them saying, because it's not serving the collective unconscious in that state of which that individual's in. But if someone has grown past that and then they are not being served by the collective unconscious is happy to let them go. It's not a prison. It is literally this. everything's basically always a circle. There's program information that comes in from another collective unconscious. Doesn't have to be, but that's how I perceive it. It's actually functioning. Information comes in and is fed to the groups and the individuals within the collective unconscious because it's a natural neural net that's always happening. Everyone's always connected. It's just how it works. And then it goes in, and then we, as beings of spiritual embodiment, with our wonderful bodies of this magical realm, are always projecting back out through our subconscious. And so we take that information in and we project it back out, and then coming back around, that information of what we projected back out, which is basically the reaction to the information coming in, is fed back to the collective unconscious above and to itself as the collective unconscious that we're in. Therefore, it's very easy for these other collective unconsciouses, that's represented by like controlling factions. They're not controlling shit, they're just doing their job on a spiritual level. It's very easy to predict where the masses are going to go because they're literally going down the trail of crumbs led and left by these other smaller collective unconsciouses. But where are they getting the information from? They're just doing what they're told to do. They're just going down the exact same path that every group has gone down for however long. I don't want to be stuck on numbers, but a long time. If it was a different era or age, it would feel like that collective unconscious is going great and it's on the uptick. But because it's at such a chaotic split or such a chaotic place and it feels like there may be a split, everybody wants to point up at that. But that thing is just doing its job, just feeding information in. And it's really not feeding information in to dumb down the people or like make anybody go crazy or like make everybody turn against each other. What it's doing is slowly feeding that this collective unconscious, the large one, the masses, that it is going through the required discombobulation to be able to assimilate into a new perspective of literally a new world. I know a lot of people are going to say, or if anybody ever sees this, are going to say, a new world order. Yeah, that's okay. I hear you. I hear you. There's just more to it than that. That's a way to look at life. I'm familiar with a lot of the trappings of what is designated around the terrible control of the New World Order. I am not supporting that in any way. What I'm saying is, if you're staying within the collective unconscious and yet you're looking at that and fearing that, then you're literally, what you fear is what you feed. You're literally doing the job of the thing that you fear. If you separate yourself from it, that's it. There's nothing for you to address anymore. It's about here and here. And then this follows, always in that order. 1, 2. Your belly is 3. Listening. Listening, not reacting. Pivoting. 1, 2, 3. And then your body. 4. Decisive, courageous action. If you're starting, most people are starting New World Order, immediate reaction, out of order, belly. Mind, oh no, body feels stuck. Heart never gets into it. It's literally exactly the opposite. So what are you doing to get the fuck out? What are you doing to benefit your scenario if you're scared of the New World Order? Because a new world is coming. It's a change of the collective unconscious. It's just a morphing of it. And beyond that, if you stick around for however long it takes, 50 years, 500 years, whatever, that collective unconscious that is perceived to be a new world order eventually will turn into something wonderful and beautiful. But if you're really swinging for you now, that might not be enough for you. There may be a requirement at some point, no matter what, for you to separate and truly find yourself without the influence of the collective unconscious. Not because there's something wrong with it, because you already know in your heart, what are you here for? The more you're truly aligned with what you're here for, all that shit does not matter at all. None. So, for example of how I perceive how the collective unconscious functions, it's a little bit, there's some nuance to it. There's a requirement to separate from a feeling of us versus them, because that means that the individual is perceiving that they are being controlled or everyone around them is being controlled. And that, if you believe it, you will perceive it. And if you believe it, you perceive it, that becomes part of your frequency. And you're literally creating circumstances in your life where you're finding proof for that. I'm under the, not under, I am of the belief structure that as the ages turn, the actual environment and the actual attachment to the energies of the celestial energies, bodies, whatever, um, the actual functional earth itself, the masses, the races of the masses of people, the power and represented pseudo power, how everything works everywhere on every level is a molding of the belief structure of the collective unconscious itself. So my belief structure is mostly separated from the collective unconscious. I am limitless. I've grown past it. But when you're deeply, deeply entrenched by it, I think nearly anyone is, if they are stuck in a scenario that they are greatly outnumbered and are inundated with information constantly, that may be the most trying thing in the world. Is it going to end up sucking you back in, and is it going to actually be offering information that you're unconsciously accepting, even if you don't consciously want to, and therefore your magical being itself, your body and your divinity, is shooting that information back into this world. I think most would fall into that. There are some, I mean, that's what mastery is, in my opinion. You've grown past it with your all levels of your awareness, all levels of your consciousness. You've grown past being mastered, grown past being controlled, grown past being informed by that which is less than you on every level, no matter what. In your superconscious, your self-conscious, your unconscious, your lower unconscious, your subconscious, you cannot be manipulated, no matter what. And I think the requirement for that is to get to a place of such complexity in which you master yourself and work through that to the great simplicities. And those great simplicities are the guidelines for you within the middle path. So I honestly, for a long time, thought this. I honestly think that when it's said that, I don't know if I should say think, I say feel, because I don't think about it too much. I honestly feel that most of the reasoning for the information coming in on any level, the reason that propaganda even exists, the reason that medium is the message, the reason that advertising or branding even exists, is that you get enough imprinting into enough individuals' unconscious on an individual basis that it begins to feed into a permanent rotation within the collective unconscious. And therefore, it's basically just propelled forward as real based on the effect that all these divine beings are unconsciously accepting that now that's real, and then their subconscious projecting it out. I think if you really pay close attention, you'll see that in everything. It's like how does everybody pick up like the same nuances so quickly? How do the same storylines run so quickly? How does um, everybody just believe defiantly nearly everything about a subject matter because everybody else does, but none of them actually have done anything to figure any of it out at all? Like none. None of the people have done none of the research. And yet everybody is defiantly defensive of knowing that they know it when they know that they don't. And their go to is like, well, everybody knows that. Everybody knows it because a certain percentage of individuals unconsciously accepted it and then it became propelled into a large enough aggregoric form within the collective unconscious that then everybody or the vast majority of the collective unconscious accepts it. And the collective unconscious is not playing a game where it has to be 100% or 0%. 20% is good enough. 40% is good enough. 90% is good enough. Doesn't matter. As long as it's feeding information back in and it's a predictable loop, the collective unconscious itself is operating on feedback, 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 feedback. And that feedback is feeding the collective unconscious, is also feeding the mirror of what everybody individually and together regionally sees in their lives. That's why I said when you separate, you have the opportunity to literally see yourself affecting this place because this place is paying attention to you, but you can't see it when you're in the collective unconscious because everyone around you is affecting you on such a level. The information they take in is affecting you. So there may be a time in which people thought the earth was flat because, and I don't know this, but I feel this, because the earth was fucking flat. Because the collective unconscious said it was. And there may be a time in which the earth was a sphere because people thought the earth was a fucking sphere. Because all of them heard it for 90 years straight in primary school. And damn near nobody said anything different than that within themselves because everybody else in the classroom was like, obviously, it didn't even occur to them to say no to it. So it just is a sphere. And then, and this isn't a thing that I'm into on either side, whatever, but if there's people now saying the earth curvature and a bunch of other stuff doesn't add up, so the earth must be flat. So it can't be a sphere based on science. And other people saying it has to be a sphere, you're crazy. All of the astronomy and all of the turning of constellations and stars and everything else, all of that science adds up. And we've always known it was a sphere. Well, take out that we've always known on every argument forever. And just look at, well, what if the science supports both sides? What if all science always is supporting what the collective unconscious is allowing it to support? It damn sure is. Because the science is measuring, it's not creating anything, it's measuring what's already here and how things already function. But society has trapped itself in smaller and smaller mechanisms. And then so science begins to, the science that we have ordained as more accepted in 2024 is more smaller and smaller and smaller, more acute in its analysis of things. Therefore, any holistic, without being hippie, just the term holistic, any whole perspective of anything is not relayed within any one field of science. Therefore, it can't get any traction. And it's just thrown out. Well, that's the age that we're in. How did it get like that? It got like that the same way everything gets like that. Little snippets of information get accepted into the collective unconscious, and then everybody is at that level now. And then within the next 5 years, more snippets get accepted within the collective unconscious and then gets to here. It's just a drop at a time. And that's how these other collective unconsciouses are so easily predicting where everything is going because they're putting in food coloring drops and they know what color the water is going to change to. It's like the Gulliver's Travels thing. It's magic because I can change the colors of the water. They get everybody to fight with your crack the egg from the big side, crack the egg from the small side. You choose a fucking side. Choose a side. Choose one. You can't not choose one. Choose one. And then you're defending your side forever, not really because you love your side, because that doesn't make any sense, but because you can see all the flaws in the other team's perspectives. And you're in the beehive frequency effect of protecting everyone on your frequency. That's the same thing with, is the earth flat? Is the earth not flat? Whatever. That's, what if all that shit is based on the projection of the accepted energy of the collective unconscious? And so wherever the collective unconscious of this that we're in now, or I'm not in, or I am a little bit, mostly I'm not, but most are, vast majority are, still. Even if they can see beyond the veil, most are still receiving the inundated information from the collective unconscious. And they're operating within a mechanism where everybody in their life and their physical distancing is being fed information on a program of predictability from the collective unconscious within itself to get itself to a consistent place of receiving feedback and then consistently bettering its own operation. It's a self serving loop. If that information coming in was uh, in harmony, there would still be a requirement to become aware of it, but it wouldn't be perceived as this malevolent thing. It would be its same thing though. So most within society are receiving information, plus they're around a physical ambiance of others that are always receiving information from the collective unconscious, and that affects them. And that seems a little like out there, but it's just so obvious. It's obvious. I mean, 100% it does. It affects them almost more than anything. One of the hardest things to do in life is stand up in front of everybody and say, no, you've all received information and none of that's accurate. Because they have proof in their life that it's accurate, and you have proof in your life that it's not. It's different frequencies, more attachment to a certain core within the collective unconscious. So, in my estimation, whatever shape of the earth or whatever unique discoveries are made in the next couple hundred years, um, that will be based on, and people may say, oh, this is great scientific breakthrough, or this great awakening, or is this, whatever term, whatever term that is, whatever buzzword it is part of the information feed coming into the collective unconscious, and then it will spread like wildfire. You ever notice that? All of a sudden, everybody starts saying these words out of nowhere, and just everybody says it. Just everybody says it. Uh, like really, really think about that. I don't have the greatest example, but however long it was, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, everybody just started saying bro. Everybody all at the same time. Take the individual aspect out of it and think of it, look at it like you're floating in a meditative place and you can see the energy of every little dot of all humans on whatever this thing is. It's morphing, in my opinion. And then think that all of them are going to start using a new version of a slang word. How quickly would that move? It's unnatural how quickly things are fed into social programs and how quickly they're accepted. It's not natural. It is a program. It doesn't mean that it's nefarious. It means that we're all connected in a way that's invisible and we pick up on each other. And if we're honed in with certain programs that we accept and we enjoy or we're scared of or we have whatever emotion attached to it, that's a deep attachment to certain elements of the collective unconscious, beyond safety, beyond family and friends or occupation. And so whatever feeds into that mechanism, if there's a buzzword attached to that, you're you're going to have it appear in your life, and you're going to find resonance with it, and you're going to pick it up, and you're going to like it. You're going to start saying it because you are operating as a mechanism that has that program within it. It's not that the program's controlling you. It's not that the program is bigger than you. It's that you have accepted the program. And so you're operating with that program. Like uh if you put OBS video recorder, audio recorder on your computer, you would just expect that it would work properly. Well, that's the same thing with these collective unconscious programs. They work properly. You are attached to everyone around you. This environment that we operate within the collective unconscious, is molding. It is morphing. Everything is always changing. Everything. It's very easy to see things that are unfair and desire some retribution or desire something that would equate to vengeance or setting the record straight. But damn near everything and everyone that's ever participated in any friction ever, uh, it's basically all a mannerism within the collective unconscious for a bigger purpose. The collective unconscious is not God. It's an energy form that keeps things moving and keeps things safe until someone outgrows it. Has it always been there? I don't know. Uh, it seems like it's not required, in my opinion. But I think it'd probably be scary for a lot of folks if it wasn't there. I'm not so sure that there could be a society in the way that we see societies with these implications of threats and rules without a collective unconscious. It seems like there would be too many individuals that didn't buy into it. And I also am not sure that there ever can be a mass of individuals because of how we function that don't morph into some type of neural net if they're closely connected or of the same frequency. So if millions of people separate from our collective unconscious and don't choose to try to enter into these other ones, even the groups that are in a controlling or influencing way to this overall collective unconscious. Those collective unconscious, still, those individuals can leave that. So, say a couple million people leave. Eventually, in my opinion, that forms a new collective unconscious if they're all of the same ilk or same frequency. Just naturally. I think it just naturally occurs. But then it's about manipulating that natural mechanism. And that's where more of a matrix perspective comes in. The matrix is filters through which you see things. It's limiting your belief structure. So I don't think there's anything that's not malleable based on a collective unconscious morphing and changing its core perspectives, its belief structure of itself. That's why when there's a new world order, the information for the new world order is slowly put in, and there's a great deal of programming that's released and fear that's released to get people on board with it. It's the people that are on board with it that are projecting it out into this reality. And it's the people that are fighting it and hating it that are projecting it out into this reality because they're still paying attention to it. What you focus on, you get more of. That's the people that like it. What you fear, you feed. That's the people that don't like it. The answer is to find your purpose. Honor your gifts. Follow your bliss. Come on, y'all. Hey, 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 hey. Easy. Anything can be molded within the collective unconscious. Anything. You can have a little kid be president, whatever. Anything, truthfully. And it's easy. It's just about getting enough of a percentage of the accepted divine beings that are unaware of themselves and how they function. They're operating fully within the collective unconscious, getting enough of them to accept a belief. And that will change, that will begin to change the belief structure of the collective unconscious. And then more information that will create feedback, and then more information will come in, arching over that feedback, and that will continue to go around until basically everybody within the collective unconscious has an opinion of it, is aware of it. Whether they like it, whether they are choosing to be completely staunchly abstinent of it, or they strongly dislike it, it is now within their unconscious individually. Their awareness of it. From that place, once basically enough, say enough, over 50% are aware of a thing, and that 50% is within the collective unconscious, then who is within the collective unconscious will see that thing as being real. Or it will be accepted within the greater collective unconscious, and it will be projected out, and those that reject it will have a very difficult time, because in their life they will see that cannot be true, but that some of the new information is showing it as true, and it will scramble things. This also ties into the fact that history itself is changing based on the individual, and if they're tied to a collective unconscious, the collective unconscious's perspective of it. It just is. And it's the state of now, the presence of now, that is changing the perspective of now, which changes the actual event's ability to be perceived. And truth itself is explaining why something happened, what and how it happened. And that itself is molding. So it's based on the perspective of where you're at. There is a core truth, but no matter where you are, you're at somewhat of a, unless you're basically have grown beyond being in this realm. You are at a place of a stagnant position and directive to truth. So, truth itself, as the core, is molding and changing, but it is always explaining why something happened, how it happened, with clarity. But the fact that you are being pulled in different directions and you're at a stagnant place, you are perceiving the value of truth based on from where you are. That same position is perceiving what history was, is, what the future was, is, where you are, what you are now. All of this is operating as your belief structure. So as your belief structure expands, your relationship to truth, your relationship to history, your relationship to the future, your relationship to yourself and your limits or non-limits, all is molding. It's the exact same thing with the belief structure of the collective unconscious. As the belief structure of the collective unconscious is molding, is changing, their relationship to all of it, that's not true, this is true, this is the new information, whatever, is all flipping. What do you think it was like if it happened? I mean, I can't prove it happened, but that's the story. If it happened that the world was said at a certain time that it was flat and accepted, then at a certain time that it was a sphere and it was accepted. I know, you know, Galileo, Copernicus, or whatever, and whoever got banished, whoever got killed, I get it. Just think about it from the layman's point of view. Probably most people didn't accept it, and then they started to a little bit, and then a little bit more. The ones that accepted it in the beginning were probably a little ostracized, but they thought they were ahead of the curve. And then eventually it got to the point where the kids started learning it. And once the kids started learning it, it was in there pretty solid. And so 1.5 generations later, it becomes normalized. Can't do it in one generation, but it doesn't really take three. It depends on how separate the homestead is. But if you have kids going to a school or you have a social manipulation program, it really shouldn't take more than 1.5 generations. By that full second generation, you should be able to have implemented a new truth, or not truth, but a new perspective. By implementing that new perspective in the collective unconscious, it then becomes real for those within the collective unconscious. We are tethered together, and we are tethered together within and as a self-serving loop system that's operating on a frequency. That system is receiving information and directive. It's also continually operating based on its own feedback. It's easy to see. It's hard to see when you're in it. It's hard to see when you're attached to it because it's literally every single piece of information. But there's probably many different names for it. This is just how I came about it. Influencing and propagandizing tend to be something that everybody sees through. Salesmanship, everybody sees through it immediately. And yet, Almost anybody spends enough time around somebody who's influencing, uh, salesy, propagandist. Genuinely, almost everybody's eventually just gonna get beaten down by it and say, yeah, I mean, he's a good enough dude, or yeah, she's, kind of self-promoting, but she's all right. I like her. And then they end up taking in the information from that which is consistently repeating. So in the beginning, you can see through it, and it's self-serving, not good or bad, just self-serving. A certain type of program, certain type of personality effect, which we are not our personalities. We're meant to grow past them. But in the beginning, everybody can see through it. The individual probably knows everybody can see through it. They're just not paying attention to that all the time. And so eventually it gets to the point where everybody, whether they agree or don't agree, or like the individual or not, they end up being inundated by the information to the point where they basically acquiesce to the information. We can see that on an individual level. Somebody who sells Mary Kay, somebody who's like selling, flipping houses all the time, somebody who's um, whatever. They have a certain perspective, political view, and or religious view, or um, they're zealous about offering opinions. But even beyond that, just say salesmanship of like a certain product or a service, a service of themselves, their advisory services, therapy, based on the perspective of the individual and the way they offer it and the um, nuance, personality effects. If they're selling it, if they're offering it out on a consistent basis to those in their social circles, others will be not that interested in it. Just naturally. It's like we didn't come looking for this, so we're not interested in it. And then we were looking for friendship. You're trying to get me to sign up for your thing, you know. And then eventually, whether people sign up or not, it will inevitably be that over 50% of the audience of friends or colleagues or whatever end up just going along with it. Just not that they buy it, but just they just go along with accepting this is how it is. This is how, you know, we're used to it now. And so they're unconsciously accepting that a piece of that is the new truth. And they see more and more of it in their life. And they are divine. All sides of this are divine, but they are divine, limitless spirit energy. So once they unconsciously have absorbed that this is how it is and acquiesce to it, they're propelling from their unconscious a little bit of that energy into their subconscious. And that subconscious is then propelling that energy back into the world. And that's why salesmanship and self promoting and fake it till you make it and all that stuff works. Because most people don't put up a fight. Most people just walk away or accept it, even if they're not interested, being polite, you know. And those that accept it end up putting that energy back out into the world, and that feeds the one that's originally attempting to sell. It's the same thing with the collective unconscious. Enough information comes in on a certain subject matter, and duality works perfectly here. So if people hate it or people love it, they're still unconsciously giving energy to it. And when they give energy to it, they are feeding that agregoric perspective of that entity. That new buzzword, bro. they're feeding that into the neural net of those around them and their social norm, their society, their regional society, their larger society, their internal groupings, their auras, their worlds, and they're feeding it into, and those all these feed into the larger collective unconscious. And before you know it, that shit spreads like wildfire. Just take a look at this cycle. It always happens like that. In everything, everything is fractal. Everything is fractal, correspondence. As you are a fractalization of God, of the creative generative principle, everything about you is. Everything about this place is. Everything about how we interact is. The collective unconscious is that too. Watch how information comes in and then how quickly individuals either accept it or don't accept it, and then how quickly it becomes part of a social norm. Honestly, have the courage to ask yourself, is this natural? Could this possibly happen just by humans trying to force it down somebody's throat? It's more than that. There's an invisible force of a neural network of collective unconsciousness that it's always going to be something that humans are doing within each other. The the mechanism that I desire differently is a natural form of a neural network in which everyone involved is focused on wisdom and love. Oof, big cough. So ideally, I see a collective unconscious in which individuals are in small groupings. And I'm not no utopia thing, just that there's small groupings and there's a common goal, and the goal is expanding the belief structure of the individual and an awareness that that belief structure expansion is best provided feedback by living naturally in a natural world, because this world is a magical realm providing feedback straight to you. But when there's too much interference, it's very difficult to see, and then that's when people start to think that the great wisdom and love of, the deeper truths are all nonsensical, not unscientific bullshit. I don't blame anybody for that. I probably would have thought that a few years ago as well. It's just, if you dig deep enough into anything, it kind of falls apart to the level of you were either attempt to figure out the whole holistic thing, or you'll go kind of crazy, or you just give up. And the only way to figure out the whole thing is by connecting with love and going into your heart, because it's not in your mind and it's not in your belly, it's not in your body. It's allowing your mind and your belly and your body to listen and follow your heart. Not like follow my heart, I want to be a gymnast. Follow your heart in the now. Have the courage to listen to your heart first, and then apply that directive from your heart to your mind. And that will get you back closer to nature, to seeing who you are. And then you will begin to perceive things in a greater, uh, with greater vision and greater frequency. If you listen to your heart, you will expand your resonance. If you expand your resonance, you will have more strength to begin to address your inner fears and release your mind boxes. Your mind boxes are layered on the interior with transparent fears. And that's one of the things we're here to do is address those. And they're super fun if you can get used to addressing them. It sucks terribly if you really, really don't want to. The collective unconscious that we're used to is always telling us not to address those fears. It's offering entertainment, which is a replacement from joy, because joy derives from internal accomplishment, which is never, ever, ever, ever once going to come from entertainment. And so, if small groups or even an individual is closely tied to nature and they're actually operating within the mechanism of attempting to expand their belief structure, if that becomes a neural network of collective unconscious itself, that isn't the type of thing that will be competing, because that it would just immediately be aware of the fact that all true competition is within. It's obvious. The comparison is a thief of joy. Like why would a a collective unconscious focus on growing uh, in a certain direction? All collective unconscious, everything in life is focused on growing. It's just growing in what pattern and what stage of rhythm. So if there's a collective unconscious that's focused on growing by living with wisdom and love and starting from the heart, in my opinion, then that greatly accelerates the life and the process for those within it. Much in the same way that it seems like so many in the current collective unconscious feel stuck. They feel stuck because it seems like the collective unconscious they're in is not serving them, but it's serving them perfectly by showing them that they are stuck so that there's something that they can do to shake themselves of it. How else would they get out of being within the collective unconscious if it didn't become uncomfortable for them so that they had to make a change and get out of it and find out who they really are? See, these things are not traps, they're opportunities. Shit is terrible for 20 years. And then don't have to live in that anymore. And all of a sudden, for 1 year, it's like, oh, it's a little better. And then 3 years after that, oh, it's pretty great. Okay. From 20 to 40, it was shitty. Or from 30 to 50. But now you're 53. And you see way more than you did for the rest of your life. Because you're stepping out of it. Well, now you have consistent, constant choice. Always. What are you going to do with that divine choice? If you're receiving information from the collective unconscious repeatedly, you're making it harder on yourself. You can do what you want, though. If you're focusing on expanding yourself, young, expanding yourself and living within a mechanism of feedback of this natural magical realm, then you will grow quickly, because it will be obvious to you. These frustrations that we have, these stuck feelings, or this life is unfair, there's this like controlling order, or the world's going crazy. These are all huge opportunities and huge offerings to say, okay, obviously, now you're seeing this level of where you're at. It's not this one group, it's that these things are happening in this way that they're happening. If you keep giving your attention to that information, you're going to see more of that. Not just like you happenstance see more than that. No, that thing grows in your life. It just does. There will be somebody at the party who, out of nowhere, takes the other side of a perspective that you weren't even involved in, and they literally say everything mimicking the points from TV or the internet that you cannot comprehend anybody could ever believe. It won't even be them doing it. It's the character of them showing up in your life because you have paid attention to it, that which bothers you, instead of addressing that which bothers you and growing past it. This may become repetitive at this point, but everything within the collective unconscious is giving you the opportunity to see that you are within the collective unconscious, or that the collective unconscious is within you, that your aura is feeding it. It's not unfair. It's showing it to you obviously everywhere. It's how much and how long are you going to run from it? Are you ever going to do anything about it? That's why you're here. You don't have to, but if you have a great desire to, that's why you're fucking here. Do something about it. Be grateful for it. Honor it. Say thank you. I'm out. And if you leave and master yourself, you can come back. Tether yourself to it. Be a guide. Show others. Everything is always changing, and everything is situational. But love and loyalty is all that matters. We are always giving our loyalty to that which we are beholden to, unconsciously. It's time for you to start paying attention to what your lower unconscious, your unconscious, your subconscious, your self conscious, and your superconscious really truly desire. It is possible to pay attention to what your purpose is, what your gifts are, and what your bliss is. It is possible to be the real you. It is possible to live this life like that. It's up to you what you're going to pay attention to. It's always here first. The collective unconscious is a tool. It's a Ferris wheel, and eventually it's your job to say, "Oh, I'm on a Ferris wheel. And I didn't even know it." Then it's your job to say, "Well, I either want to stay on or get off." And then it's your job to actually act and choose and be decisive and do it. It's up to you. I love you. Prima Voltus Interiorum.